Hello everyone and welcome to week 1 of EUN 122 Curriculum and Pedagogy 3 Assessment. This is one of 2 curriculum units that you are doing this semester. 121 is in your first teaching area, 122 lines up with 120 from last semester and is in your second teaching area. So the first thing I'm going to do is give you some reminders from EUN 120, and then I'm going to concentrate on the focus of this unit, which is all about assessment. So reminders from 120, a reminder of the structure of the Australian curriculum, a reminder of the structure of the Australian curriculum in geography. Then we'll start delving into assessment, and we'll look at assessment in the Australian curriculum geography, looking at the achievement standard, because that is the main place where you find what needs to be assessed. Then we'll look at assessment in geography in general, some suggestions for learning activities that can be assessed, and strategies for assessment as well. And then just very briefly at the end, looking ahead to your next 2 units, 221 and 222, which take you into senior. Now obviously this subject is based on 7 to 10, but quite often what happens is the types of assessment that are used in senior are used further down back into 7 and 10 as practices for what is going to come in senior. Okay, so a reminder of the Australian curriculum. You know that it's made up of 3 different things. You've got the learning areas, of which this one is obviously geography. You've got the 3 cross-curriculum priorities, and you have the 7 general capabilities. So the Australian curriculum sets what all students are to be taught, content in the learning areas, and the quality of learning expected by years or bands. And in geography, that is by year, and that is suggested in the achievement standards. Again, a little reminder of the general capabilities that make up the Australian curriculum, and their little icons, which a lot of you used in your assignment in 120, literacy, numeracy, ICT, critical and creative thinking, personal and social capability, ethical understanding, and intercultural understanding. And then the circle in the middle reiterates what was said in the Melbourne Declaration about successful learners, confident and creative individuals, and active and informed citizens. That is supposed to what happens when you learn the Australian curriculum. A reminder of the cross-curriculum priorities: Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures, Asia and Australia's engagement with Asia, and sustainability. And they are embedded in all curriculum areas, but obviously some areas lend themselves better than others. In geography, it's very easy to fit all 3 areas in. Just to remind you of the structure of geography, as you already know, it is divided into 2 strands. The first one is geographical knowledge and understanding, which is made up of your subject content, which you will see in the content descriptors and the elaborations, and then the concepts, which are your abstract ways of thinking in geography, like place, space, environment, etc. The second strand is your geographical inquiry and skills. And then the description for the year level, where you've got on the left-hand side your content and your concepts, and the concepts are named here as scale, environment, place, space, interconnection, sustainability, and change. And then your other strand, which is your geographical inquiry and skills, which is made up of the 5 dot points: observing and questioning and planning, collecting, recording, evaluating and representing, interpreting, analysing and concluding, communicating, and reflecting and responding. And remember, it is not necessarily a linear process, but it can be deeply iterative, where you go back and forward between the different elements of the inquiry process, and indeed some can actually be repeated. In 120, we looked at year 7 and 8 in particular. In this unit, we are going to concentrate more on years 9 and 10, so that you've got more coverage of the knowledge and understanding of the geography curriculum from 7 to 10. Obviously not forgetting about your concepts, which are just represented graphically in a different way here. And you will remember your concept wheel from Malcolm McInerney, who is the president of AGTA, the Australian Geography Teachers Association. So that's just a recap on the Australian curriculum. I'm assuming that you already have a lot of that knowledge, so that was just to put you back into that headspace. Now, EUM 122 concentrates on assessment, and we did look at it briefly in 120 when we talked about learning intentions and success criteria, and where you find that success criteria is obviously in the achievement standards. And here are the achievement standards for years 9 and 10. I will also put on the Blackboard site the sequence of achievement so that you can see the achievement standards for years 7 and 8 as well. But basically, how the achievement standard is laid out is there are 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph is usually referring to the strand geographical knowledge and understanding, and the second paragraph refers to the second strand, which is geographical skills and inquiry. I encourage you to read through the achievement standards for 7 to 10, but particularly for 9 and 10, as that is what this unit is based on. Assessment in geography. There are a few things that we need to remember from the academic literature about what assessment in geography should look like. It should be fit for purpose. It must be based on clear criteria. It must be planned, so it's not something that is tagged on at the end of teaching and learning. You start with your assessment piece and you backward map something that you were introduced to in 120. You backward map and you come up with the teaching and learning strategies that will give your students the skills that they need in order to be successful in the assessment piece. All assessment must be appropriately recorded and reported, and it must be valid. And I'm only going to talk about the 2 that are in red. I think the other 3 are self-explanatory. So what I mean by fit for purpose is that it has to be a particular type of assessment. And some of these you have already been introduced to in 120. So formative assessment. This is recognizing the positive achievement of students, feeding back in terms of students' understanding, and feeding forward as in which steps to take or targets to meet. And quite often that is called AFL, or Assessment for Learning. A summative assessment task is something that usually comes at the end of a piece of work, and it's a record of the overall achievement. You usually get some sort of a grade, and it is often referred to as Assessment of Learning, or AOL. You can also have diagnostic assessments that are designed to identify and measure learning. For example, literacy. So you might put in a little diagnostic, might even be a spelling test, just to check that they understand the geographical terms that underpin the unit. And then the last one, evaluative, which is about fulfilling the needs of the state or administration. So high stakes testing like NAPLAN are an example of evaluative assessment. You will cover the different types of assessment in more detail with your unit coordinator for this unit, who is an assessment expert. When we talk about assessment, it must be valid, and there are a few different types of validity that I would like to mention here. The first one is content validity. Is the focus of the assessment representative of the big ideas, the official curriculum documents for the discipline, in this case obviously geography? Construct validity. Does the assessment design gather evidence of what it was designed to gather evidence of? And the last one, consequential validity. Is the assessment worthwhile for improving learning, and is it equitable? And as I said for the last slide, you will cover this in a lot more detail with the unit coordinator, who is an assessment expert. There are lots and lots of different learning activities that can be assessed in geography, and here are just a few that I have categorized under oral, written, graphic, and then the product at the end. But I'm sure you can think of a lot more different types of assessments that you can use in geography. Take time to ponder over these ones and add to the table. Strategies for assessment, so different types of tests. You can have multiple choice, true, false, short answer, and so on. Performance assessment, which might just be a checklist or a rating scale or something like that. Product I've already mentioned. And then other ways of assessing are self and peer assessments. So that might be some sort of joint marking or journal or contract or something like that. Again, your unit coordinator will give you more detail on this. Strategies for seniors. So as most of you would know, the senior syllabi in Queensland are changing. And from 2019, we will have new assessment strategies for senior. And quite often what happens is that those assessment strategies are pulled down and used in 7 to 10 to give students some sort of familiarity with these assessment strategies by the time they get to 11 and 12. The three that are in geography are examination, which is referred to as a combination response. And basically, this is a lot of short answer questions, usually in response to some sort of map or graph or something like that. And then the last part of that is a more extended response, usually around a case study environment or something like that. Investigation, which is a field report, which is where students go out and do some sort of fieldwork project. They will gather data, they will analyze it, and they will present it. And the last one, an investigation, is a data report. And again, that is very similar in that you are responding to maps, graphs, charts, etc., and coming up with some sort of conclusion and some sort of action if you think back to what your inquiry method is about. So all assessment in geography is about responding and analysing various types of stimuli to come up with some sort of way forward or some sort of action to improve the world for the future. So that's your short introduction, and welcome again to EUN 122, and I look forward to working with you in the background. Thanks, bye.